Dynamic feet and hand mobility. So we're going to be looking at small movements that we can incorporate into the dynamic warm-up to warm up the joints of the fingers, the wrists, your feet, and your ankles. One mandatory area that we need to open during all of the warm-ups in the signature series, so Explore, Experience, and Excel, is the calves. Opening up this area will help your students, especially with their gait, with proper walking. We want ankle flexibility so that the students can actually pick up their feet and get that heel to toe motion. So these small exercises will create more space in the joint. They'll also, at some level, create some strength so that your students have a better ability to move through their daily life. So we're going to start in the seated position. So your students come to their proper position, and first, we're just going to have your students lift their heels off the ground. So they're doing plantar flexion, and when they lift their heels off the ground, they're actually working their calf muscles. So they're working their gastrocnemius and their soleus. Remember, if your students prefer, they can have a light grip right here or hands on the thighs. So we just simply start moving the heels up and down. The next motion at the ankle is we're going to have your students lift their toes. So it's called dorsiflexion. So the toes come up, and right away they're going to feel, wow, I've got a muscle right here, my anterior tibialis. This muscle is so important in proper gait and proper walking. If you think of students and shuffle stepping, a lot of times they keep their feet really close to the ground because they don't have the strength to do these motions. So these toe taps are very, very important, and I definitely include them in the majority of your warm-ups. Now you can flow in between them. You could have your students lift their heels, lift their toes. You could even add in some arm movements. So you could tell your students, pretend you're running, and they can lift up on their heels, get a little shoulder girdle mobility, a little more total body integration here. Or you could have your students tap their toes, and we could add in a little bit of hand mobility. So maybe we could tell our students, pretend like you're playing the piano. And I understand I don't play the piano. This is just all for fun and games. But you can have them play the piano, do a rotation, and the concept here is that we're getting the joints of the fingers gently moving. And this is great for your students that have arthritis. Now, staying down at the foot and the ankle, you can also have your students just gently lift up a leg and do some rotations. So circling their ankle, nice and slow and controlled. If we circle in one direction, we're going to circle in the opposite. And then maybe doing that pointing and flexing. So just realize the calf opening occurs when the foot is flexed right here. And you'd obviously do that on the opposite leg. So there's a lot of different variations there for the ankles. For the fingers, we did the piano. We can also go just an open and close. Open, stretch, and close. Or you could have them take one finger to their thumb, just switching it out. We can do flexion or extension from the wrist, so they just flex, extend, and that feels better if their hands are down right here. We can add in the rotation, so circling the wrist, circling the opposite direction. So moving now up to standing, all of those same exercises can be done with light support. So if we think of the ankle, we want to take the leg away from the chair. We have light support. We have flexion, extension, rotation. Now, I want to point out the toe taps. When your students are standing, we want to bring one foot forward and one foot back. We just want to do one foot at a time for the toe taps, the dorsiflexion, when they're standing. It's an extreme shift back, so we want to avoid doing both toes at the same time standing because there's a possibility that if your students lift both toes up, they could fall back, and we want to prevent falls at all costs. Safety, we're in a group fitness class, and we need to keep it safe for the entire group. So one foot goes a little bit forward, they can tap their toe, they could even add a little direction, taking that toe in and out. So in and out, and then coming back center. Now to dynamically open up the calf, the back of the lower leg, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, make sure your students' toes, the back toe is facing directly ahead and the foot is all the way down on the ground. And from here, you just have them lift up, so their heel comes up, and then the heel lowers back down. So we have the dynamic calf opening. Now coming in, you can integrate the finger mobility and the hand mobility into your basic march or your low impact movements that you have in your warm-up. So we'll take, for instance, a march. Your students are marching. They can open and close their fingers. They could do finger to thumb. They could do the hip rotations. They could do the wrist rotations. Now for your freestanding students, again, same movements can be done. We can just integrate them a little bit more. So we can go to the calf stretch. Again, making sure that that toe is straight ahead, the heel is down, hand is on the thigh, and then we can just lift up and lower down. Again, just adding in a little motion of the arm, so a little more integration. For your more advanced students, you could come to 1 foot balance, and then you could do those ankle rotations. So circling, going the opposite direction, pointing and flexing. And again, with the cardio, you could possibly be doing a side step. So again, if we're teaching an explore level, we don't have the chair there. This is just for demonstration purposes. So making sure they have a clear pathway, doing a side step. You could add in open and close, wrist rotations, finger to thumb. So lots of different various ways to move the joints of the fingers, the wrists, and the ankles. And remember, opening up the calves is a requirement for the dynamic warm-up of all of the Signature Series classes.